Welcome to Uncomfortable, conversations about culture and Christianity. My name is Eric, and today I'm joined by Jess.
Hello, world.
And Alex.
Happy early Mother's Day, Jess.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
And my wife and my mother and all those others.
All the moms.
All the moms.
Uh-huh.
And yes, we love you. We're thankful for bringing us into the world, and it's happening. Couple days.
What? Oh, Mother's Day.
Mother's Day is.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, wait, what's something else happening I should be aware of? This sounds serious. How's everybody doing? Is everybody doing okay? Is everybody feeling well?
It's May. May's an exciting time for me.
Is it?
I feel like, you've got April 30th, and as a huge...
Yep, that comes before May.
As a huge fan of boy bands, it's gonna be May. And then...
I am so baffled by your love for that joke.
And then, you got pull out the calendar, throw some sugar on May. They followed by May the 4th, Cinco de Mayo, Mother's Day. What a month.
There's so many memes.
What a month.
This is Alex's meme month.
Meme month.
It's going to be meme.
Wow.
Mayday.
And school's out. I'm excited for that.
Summer's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Summer's coming.
Are there any memes that you enjoy?
I feel like I can appreciate all the ones that you said, especially that it's going to be May 1. Can't go wrong with that.
JT.
How about don't waste your time on May?
Oh,
sorry. That's a
We're just going to think of songs.
Reference. Yeah. How's life? Is any big events happening in anyone's personal life? Anything you want to share? Any deep, dark secrets?
No deep, dark secrets. Last week, I got to go on 2 field trips.
Oh,
and so I didn't think field trips were going to be a part of this last year.
Yeah, I have not.
But I got to go to the zoo with my 2nd grader in his class, which was fun. Saw Ava Brandt. So shout out to you, Ava, if you're listening to this. I called her Ava. Her name's Eva.
I was going to say.
I hope you're not listening to this, Eva, because I just called you Ava.
I was thinking you're talking about
Eva,
who works in our on our missions team.
And every time, no matter how many times I know that's her name, I second guess myself thinking it's Ava.
Well, now it's
she and I work across the hall from each other, so we will be talking badly about you about that.
If she listens, I doubt she listens.
I'm going to tell her.
Just play that clip.
Guys, I'm sweating right now. Okay, I'm nervous. Let's move on. And then I had a second, my kindergartner. We had a field trip to Gifford Farms.
Are you sure you're saying that word right?
I'm positive.
Gifford.
Shout out to the Giffords.
Shout out to them. I
Is
did
it
not
like a
see
hobby
Eva
farm?
at the.
You didn't see
at the
Ava
farm.
Gifford.
Oh man.
Is it like a hobby farm?
So what are you guys doing?
Animals?
We had dinner together last week. That was fun.
He changed the
He doesn't want to know. We did. We got to hang out a little bit outside of the podcast. All of us
kind
did.
Of unusual,
we went to
really.
Jams.
Yes.
Had some good food.
They're not paying for this.
They're not. But once we got rid of Jonathan, we finally decided it would be time to get our families together. So
I think they all liked each other. I like your wives personally.
That's really,
your wife. Each of your.
That's nice. I'm glad.
I do. I really do.
You'll tell them. You're telling my wife.
I'm telling all my wives.
Austin's wife.
My Mormon secret is out.
My secret goal is I want them to be on the podcast. I want one of them to be to just step into Rachel's old spot for 1 week and let's just have at it, especially Aaron.
The spouse
I would
cast.
love a little team up against this.
What if we just had all 3 of our spouses replace us on an episode?
We did that with the residents once. Yeah, we could do.
That would be interesting. I'm sure Ben would like that.
I wonder where the conversation would head. Jess, anything else going on? Nothing you want to? No surprises you want to tell us or anything?
I don't have any surprises. Don't insinuate anything.
Any names you want to get wrong? So I don't feel like the only one that did.
I will say that Ben and I had an interesting experience that everyone at Christ Community is going to be able to see on Sunday. So tune in because Ben and I got to participate. Well, Ben did, and I got to push the controls on a birth simulator. So he got to experience maybe what
childbirth would be like,
or what he thinks it might be. So
that's
he was in
something to
lots
look
of pain.
forward to.
It was fun.
Did you try it on yourself at all, just to see if it was even close?
I
since
didn't.
you
I should've
actually
done that.
experienced it,
I guess I still have time to try, but
just to see.
I think that we should do that for.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I don't think
You're not that curious.
I don't think it's a good idea.
So
HBU. How about you, Eric? Anything exciting happening?
No. I thank you for asking though. I was trying to think if there was anything like really exciting happening, and there isn't. And that's kind of good because we've come from last year of craziness, so it's kind of nice when it's just normal. Like, or at least as close to normal as it can be. Nothing too much happening here. I mean, I recently moved my offices at the church, which was fun, and now I'm right next to Lark Stashton. And oh wait, did I get his name wrong? I think I might have.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. It's Mark.
Mark Ashton.
Yeah, it's Mark
Ashton.
That's it.
Not
Lark.
Minister.
yeah, that's it.
It's confusing.
It's really, I mean, it's a name that people mess up all the time, so it's easy to do. No, I don't really have anything else to share. I was just trying to drag you out from under that bus a little bit.
Thank you. Today is officially when we're recording this, not when people are listening. Cinco de Mayo.
Today is Cinco de Mayo.
Do you feel like
yes.
you have to eat Mexican food on Cinco de Mayo, just like personally?
It's not Tuesday, so no.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. I don't.
I feel like it is. It's a good excuse every year.
It's a good excuse.
So,
Who's having Mexican food?
I'm working late tonight, so
you're
not me.
You're not having Mexican food.
No.
fourth meal. There's always the fourth
You
meal.
could get your Taco Bell on the way home.
Yeah.
Alex,
That
you
counts.
I
planning
don't
tacos?
really know what I'm having for dinner, but I hope it's Mexican.
Good luck. I hope
spaghetti.
it is. I hope it is too.
I'll update you next week.
All right. Well, next week you'll find out if it's spaghetti or tacos, but we have headlines. All right, our first headline comes from yahoo.com. It says Will Smith announces plans to transform his dad bod into hard muscle. This might be one of my favorite Instagram posts ever. If you haven't seen it, you can, go look for yourself. Will Smith's Instagram account, where he's just looks like he's posing in the backyard.
I have now seen it.
With his,
He did more of a photo shoot afterwards.
he did another photo shoot afterwards. But the original was just him in like a windbreaker with his shirt off and supporting his dad bod. And he says that he's in the worst shape of his life. But I think he's in the same boat as a lot of people coming out of the pandemic who just, lived a very sedentary life for over a year for some people. And he said he's teaming up with YouTube to get health and wellness back on track, which I don't exactly know what that means, because I guess when I think of YouTube, I think of more sedentary things like sitting there and watching YouTube. But
Really?
What do you think about?
There's
you think about
tons of-
exercise when you go to YouTube?
There's tons. I know.
Pop
I have
sugar?
a bunch of friends.
Pop Sugar. It's a YouTube channel where you can exercise.
Pop Sugar.
There's tons of different YouTube channels, yoga, mindfulness.
See? Yeah, I'm like just
tons
like
of stuff
watching
for free. A lot of people went to YouTube during the pandemic when all the gyms were closed to get free workouts.
Okay. So that's what I'm assuming. There's something more there, like probably a YouTuber that he's teaming up with. But I really just appreciate his boldness, because I think a lot of times, well, especially on Instagram, all the Instagram models, whether they're male or female, there's so much photoshopping and photo doctoring that happens to their photos before they're posted. And then especially when you add movie star on top of that, where they're always kind of meant or expected by the public to be in tip-top shape. It's a nice, hey, look I'm just a normal human too, like you. But, I guess we'll see where he goes from here. I mean, he's a little older now. It's a little harder to lose that weight, but
I believe in Will Smith.
You believe in Will Smith?
He can do it.
And Will Smith we trust.
I think he's going to.
Yeah, I think he's going to do it too. I don't think anyone's doubting it. Are you doubting it, Alex?
I'm not doubting it. I mean, he came out with an album.
Which is not too shabby.
Recently?
No, I mean, Will Smith was like,
Yeah.
Well, I know
Not
that.
recently,
I
but-
thought you meant recently he came out
I'm saying he
with
did
that.
before, so I believe that he could do this.
Oh, okay.
If he could go from like
Will
Fresh
Smith can
Prince,
do, what can he
Big
not do?
Willie
He
style.
can kill aliens
Yeah.
on the 4th of July,
Yeah.
Independence Day.
If he can go from Fresh Prince to an album, then he can
Take
he
on
can do this.
zombies. What can he do?
Yeah, here come the Men in Black.
Yeah.
Galaxy Defenders.
All right. Well, fingers crossed he doesn't keep his weight on, I guess. I don't
just
know.
want to start singing so bad right now. We need
Don't
to change.
just resist the temptation. Next headline comes from CNN.com. It says a woman gave birth prematurely on a flight to Hawaii. Luckily, 3 NICU nurses and a doctor were on board to help. What are the odds? I guess doctors like to vacation in Hawaii. Maybe the odds are pretty high, actually. I don't know. But this is still a fun story. Now, Jess, you brought this story to our attention. And am I reading this correctly that she didn't know she was pregnant?
Oh, I don't know.
Did I?
I was so wrapped up in
Because let me read the first line
Yeah.
here. There were a lot of surprises on a flight to Hawaii last week, starting with the birth of a baby to a woman who didn't know she was pregnant.
29 weeks.
that just adds so many layers.
That's like my favorite show on TLC. Is that still on?
I didn't know I was pregnant.
Yeah. I used to watch that a lot.
I don't know.
would always just go, how? Every time.
How did you not?
Yeah.
I have a friend that did not know she was pregnant. I don't know. You
Until
just
when?
Till it showed
Like
up.
till she
Yes.
gave birth?
Yes.
That's so weird. I mean,
And
it's
like
just
just
such
looked
a crazy thing.
looked totally normal. Mm-hmm. Totally normal.
There was a baby
There
hiding
is a
in
baby.
there.
Okay, what's the chance? Okay, first of all, I have flown pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and it is like legitimately a fear of you're in the air and all the air pressure, and you can only fly at a certain amount of weeks,
Yeah.
and so. Then in the pandemic, when, say you're on an airline where there's half as many people that can fly, the chances of a doctor and 3 NICU nurses.
Yeah, really.
Wow.
Yeah, I have so many questions. So many now that I realize. I mean, was she just like having like pains in her stomach and then like, we need a doctor? And then I think you're
Alex,
pregnant.
Okay, this is how babies are born.
I know how babies are born. I've been there
But
a
you
few
mean just
times.
like,
But my wife knew, we went into the situation knowing that we were having a baby
and
each
knowing
time.
that she was bright.
Yeah.
She didn't know. What is she?
That's what I'm saying. Like, how did it begin? Did she just say, I'm having, stomach cramps or whatever?
Yeah.
And then can someone get this lady a doctor? And then he's like, ma'am, are you pregnant? I just don't like
Yeah.
how
Like, this is not.
we should
gas.
try in case, because obviously they couldn't like hear the other
should try.
heartbeat.
You should just try delivering a child. Maybe that's the. He's just like, I had Mexican food before I got on this flight.
I mean, that's legitimate. Sometimes it feels that way.
And then if you look at the picture where the doctor is posing with this lady and her baby, like everyone else is just not paying attention.
Yeah.
It's like they're looking at their YouTubes to see if Will Smith has a new video out. Not like a baby was just birthed on your flight.
They all
And-
seem so disinterested.
And
in
that's
it.
a long flight.
Yeah.
Isn't it an 8-hour flight?
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on
Interesting.
where they flew from and
But still, yeah, these people on there, like, or maybe,
Salt
this
Lake.
is.
Okay, Salt Lake to
That's a long
Honolulu.
flight.
That's a long.
It looks like, though, this is maybe a little while. I mean, obviously, a ways after. So maybe.
Well, there's a baby.
Yeah,
So.
people are just kind of like, I'm all for this.
That was entertaining, but next.
You do think they'd pose behind it, like,
Yeah.
yay, we were on this.
Or maybe they didn't know she had a baby.
And it was all undercover.
Just like her. She had no clue she was pregnant. They didn't know she had a baby.
These stories are the ones that are like, you would think they were written for Hollywood or something like that,
satire,
or a TV
yeah.
show or something like that. But
29 weeks pregnant.
Congratulations to the new baby, and thankfully everything worked out well. Just goes to show you never know if you're pregnant. Could happen to you, Alex. That does it for headlines. Up next, it's Ask Us Anything. We asked you to send us your questions, and you obliged. So we're going to be answering those out of the magical boot. In my hands, I hold the infamous boot full of questions. These questions were sent in to us via our personal social media accounts, the CCC social media account. Some questions might be directed at a person and some just to the whole group, but we're going to try to get through all of them.
Going to answer them at the spur of the moment, just like the spur on the boot.
Good one.
Thank
Good
you.
one,
Oh my
Alex. This
goodness.
was really, really creative and original. All right, let's see what I got
Without
here.
further ado, drum roll.
All right. And I'm not going to, I know some of these, it looks like some of these are labeled with who they're from. I don't think we'll
Yeah.
bother
I think
mentioning
we're
that. Why is Alex so weird and Jess so awesome? Seems biased. Did you send this one in, Jess?
No, I think we could say who that's from.
Oh, I don't know who this is from.
It's from our friend Jana,
Oh,
who is a big fan of me, I guess. I thought she was
Yeah,
a
I
fan
did
of
her
you.
wedding, so I appreciate that.
yeah. So why are you so weird, Alex?
It all started. I don't know. I mean,
You're quirky.
I am quirky. It's probably a lot to do with having a large family, needing to seek attention at different points in my life.
Okay.
I could
you
say
know?
that's the same reason that I'm awesome. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
yeah.
It's just like,
So
different
I don't know.
products, yeah.
What are some weird things about me? I mean, if you just had to name one weird thing.
There's one
let's
that's
go
really
back 2
recent.
episodes ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say all I can think about is the sock sniffing.
Oh yeah.
That's-
Okay. All right. Let's move on to
All
the
right.
next question.
Go ahead.
Am I up?
You can-
All
you
right.
can-
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
What a one to kick things off.
Oh,
All right.
this looks like a
We
long
got a
question.
long
It's a
one.
very big piece of paper.
Okay. This one harkens us back to last week. We
Okay.
talked about gun
I feel
control.
like the tone of these questions are going to just
Oh my
shift
goodness.
so,
So-
dramatically.
I'm sweating, and we have not.
ready for our
we have,
emotions. It's a roller
We have
coaster.
not prepared for these, right? We
no,
have not.
We just all threw them in this document today and cut them up
Here
and
we
put them in
go.
the boot. So this harkens back to last week. Says, as a parent, I'm curious as to how and if most parents ask other parents if they have guns in their home. Like if they're locked up, before allowing your kids to go to another kid's house to play, spend the night, all those kind of things. So just curious how like you bring this up. So one, I think is curious. I guess, have we had those conversations with our kids' friends or things like that? And then how do you bring this up? So
I guess
from
I
Alex
wouldn't,
being weird to this.
I wouldn't worry about it unless they had like a bunch of like NRA stickers on their car or something that said from my cold dead hands or something like that. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, well maybe they're like really big gun fanatics and they're all over their house, like their coffee table is held up by an AR-15 or something like that. And then I might want to like ask like, hey, those loaded, or but I don't think it would be a leading question. I don't think that'd be the first thing that would come to mind but
I have had this conversation several times with different mom groups, and I think that for a lot, it depends like how big of an issue it is to you. But I know some moms that do lead with that question of, hey, we're coming over, like, and they just don't have any hesitation in asking because it's your kid. And so I think the mama bear kind of comes in there a little bit, but they'll just say, hey, we're coming over to your house on Wednesday. Just wondering if you have any firearms, or if you do, are they locked up, or can they be locked up? Will they be locked up? I have another friend that just recently moved to Texas, and one of the ways that she chose to approach this was when she goes to a new person's house that she doesn't know for a play date, she'll say, hi, I'm assuming that there's a firearm in the house, just making sure that it's locked up. So just, I feel being really direct, like not having a hesitation with it, just, and I think a lot of people, and especially like a lot of moms, can justify asking it because you're kind of in a way being responsible for your kids. So for me personally, I haven't been in a situation where I've asked that or felt like I needed to ask that. A lot of people that I see, I think, and other people would see, you've already had a conversation, or them outside of going to their house for the first time.
yeah.
But I would just encourage this person, like if that's a concern for you, to ask. Like, don't hesitate. I feel like I love people that are direct, and I think there's this tendency for us to want to be nice and to not offend somebody by asking a question, because it can kind of sound accusatory. It's a hot button topic, but if it's a concern with you or your kids.
Yeah, I think being direct, I think letting someone know why. I mean, you might have a reason. Like I said, I shared last week that I know someone that's had a tragedy happen in their own house with a kid, finding a gun and just a tragic situation there. So I think asking and letting someone know why, you just have to be ready for that. And I think relationship has to do with it. I mean, if it's someone, my kid just met from school and this is the first conversation I'm having with the parent, I'm like, I probably want to just get to know the parent a little more anyway before I let my kid go to their house, especially spending the night, and there's all those different layers to it. But yeah, I think being direct and having a reason why and doing it in the most, I think that's part of why leading with the why behind it helps it not become across like super judgmental. And so tone, all of those things. So I'd do it in person. I wouldn't just send that via text. I think a lot of times in a text heavy kind of world, it could just be misinterpreted in a lot of different ways as well.
Because it can come across kind of judgy.
Yeah. Or on the phone, or, where there's at least tone and things like that to be understood, experience, and expect it to be a bigger conversation.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in Texas, though, the 5-year-old Timmy comes down with the 6-shooter strapped to his side anyways, so it doesn't matter.
And nothing against Texas. That's a place where you would kind of assume everybody has.
Yeah, right. Which I think it's just, and also, but I mean, I think on the flip side of that is teach your kids about gun safety too. Mm-hmm. Like if you have guns in your house, teach them what they look like, how they work, and don't play with them. They're not toys. Get an adult if they find one.
Very true. All right, ready for the next question?
I think we're got to be.
What is the purpose of the dedication of a baby?
The dedication of a baby.
Dedicating a baby. You've done a few baby dedications.
Well, I have done a few.
Let this one go to the pastor here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's no magic in the dedication of a baby. High church, older church types of traditions. A lot of times they would do baptism, and baptism for infant baptism. I've even worked at a church, United Methodist Church, that did infant baptism. I don't fully agree that that's the mode of baptism that we see throughout Scripture, but their reason is the same reason we do baby dedications. We see throughout Old Testament, Jewish history, this idea of setting apart our children, this idea of saying, hey, I'm going to make a commitment to raise my kid to know God. And so, circumcision was a big part of what that looked like in the Jewish culture, which was a physical act that kind of said for boys. And then they also did things for girls that would say physically, I'm going to dedicate my child to God and commit to raising them in the faith. They had the Shema, which is, kind of the commitment to how they would raise their kids and what they would teach their kids. And so I think more than anything, it's for a parent. A kid doesn't understand it. There's no magic in it, but I think for a parent, it's a big part of them getting together in community with other people saying, no, I'm going to do that. We're going to do this together. And I think that's the more beautiful thing, is it's not just asking a commitment that you're making to your kid, but it's a commitment that you're making along with a church, a body of believers to let's do this together. Let's do this in community. Because I think, and statistics, I think also prove that kids need at least 5 different spiritual influences and impact points in their life. Mm-hmm. And so the parents can be a part of that, grandparents, but I want that for my own kids. Mm-hmm. And so we've got other adults surrounding them in their lives that know them. And so I think that's another part of it is that. And I do think for people that have been raised in other more high church traditions, it is one of those things that I've seen become a compromise as families are trying to figure that out. There's family expectations on one side. Maybe if your spouse was raised in a baby baptism type of family, to say, hey, no, we're still doing this thing. You can even pick godparents or whatever that looks like. Mm-hmm. So that's my answer.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also just in one way a form of accountability to the parents too, to like raise their child in a a godly home, and
Yep.
it kind of holds them accountable. All right, I'm reaching for the boot. Okay.
And it's a great time to get Instagram photos, things like that. Just trying to kill the dead time. Okay. You want us to hear.
I really wanted the sound effects. It's an immersive podcast. All right, let's see. Alex, I've heard rumors that you play a thing called nude ball. Can you explain how you justify this as a Christian?
I don't even know what that is.
I don't know what they've heard.
Noon ball?
It says nude.
I do play.
You must have said it, and it sounded like nude. See?
I play noon ball. I play basketball.
Okay, explain yourself,
At
Alex.
noon,
There's a lot of,
high noon, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I play basketball against other people, other men. There's no nudity involved in that. That is honestly how I ended up at CCC was noon, Noon ball.
I'm glad. I feel like that's two clarifying questions you've had to
so
answer.
I met the former high school pastor here at Christ Community Church. I played basketball at Grace. So did he. He was a lot older. And he said, do you want to come play basketball over the lunch hour?
At noon.
At noon. And I showed up and played. I want to say this question was not in the document either. I did not have time to prepare myself.
This was a submitted question.
All right, so it's noon ball. It's basketball at noon.
Yes.
Not nude ball. So
Hopefully
whoever
that answers the listener's question.
I hope so.
Please reach out. If that did not, we'll fit that into banter next
Oh
week.
man, I need to articulate that better. So I learned one lesson today.
Alex.
Wow. Okay.
Okay,
you straw too?
One flew out too.
Sorry. I just am
flustered.
a little flustered. What is going on? Is this like Alex Day? Alex, this is a 2-part question. Is this roast Alex Day? I know you're a busy guy. How do you care for your pool on top of your other responsibilities? Any recommendations on good pool service in Omaha? What about sunscreen? I do not have a pool in my backyard. I do not.
Allegedly.
I do not have a pool.
We just knew you're, big, fancy West Omaha.
Yeah,
maybe.
I do not have a pool. I one time did have a hot tub, got rid of it within like a month. So I went to Classics Pool and Spa to get my chlorine and things like that for it. Don't have a pool. Sunscreen, SPF 50 and up.
50 and up for you.
All right.
That's good to know.
Good thing we're getting some of this stuff cleared up.
Yeah, what is going on? It's like a conspiracy against me.
Oh. What are the latest books you have read?
Oh, it didn't say Alex. Okay, you guys can answer. Thank
I have
you.
to pull up my Audible because I listen to books these days.
Oh, so you're gonna put it on me?
And we're just gonna
I can
we're
do
gonna
mine.
all assume we read the Bible. Okay, so we're gonna skip that
yes.
one.
Oh, but I'm looking up the title of this book to make sure I don't butcher it. Because I'm just started reading it.
Okay, I'm going to share the latest while you're
Go
looking
ahead.
up. I'll share the latest book. So, Ben and I have kind of been having this conversation around emotional and relational equity that's in other things like outside of work, having to like all the responsibilities that fall into a marriage or things like that. And we found this book called Fair Play, and Ben is reading through it, and it's just kind of it's a way to look at, okay, you each have a job and you have different things and different responsibilities, but when you're clocking out of a job, you're clocking into something else. And what is that? What does the load look like? And it's been really good for us. If anybody's struggling kind of with this aspect in their marriage or even life, I would recommend that book.
Okay, so I did have the title right, but I didn't want to butcher it. It is "What If Jesus Was Serious" by Skye Jethani. It's kind of it's a compilation of reflections on some of Jesus's most demanding teachings from the Sermon on the Mount, and it's I haven't really got that far into it, but I think it's really good. It's something I started reading and then put down kind of early, like mid pandemic or whatever. And it felt very applicable at the time. But yeah, I'd recommend it, I guess, if that's what we're doing, recommending it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good book. Hopefully I read it as well, and I'm kind of rereading it through for hopefully a potential series on the Sermon on the Mount coming up. But the last book I read, and actually I'm currently reading, I'm more of a reading through a few books at a time type of person anymore, especially when I'm doing research for sermons and things like that. I will say very rarely do I read fiction. I just am not creative enough, I don't think, to read, and I don't watch hardly any movies. But the latest book, called Changing Our Mind, is the name of the book. It's the third edition of the landmark call for inclusion of LGBTQ Christians with a response to critics. And so one of the topics just in my life that I'm always trying to learn and wade through is the LGBTQ community and Christianity, and for several reasons, because of personal reasons and family members, but also there's consistently, I think, voices in the Christian community that are talking about scripture and interpretation and how do we do this well, and there's different thoughts. And so I like to read books that I don't necessarily totally agree with the premise or where they come from, but to help me understand an argument or things that people might say. So that's one of the latest books I am in the middle of delving into and making a lot of notes. And so it's not like a light, I get lost in type of book, but that's it.
All right. Diving in here to the boot. Let's see what I get. Christianity and the quote unquote gay Christian, do they coexist or contradict?
Good question. Well, since I read that book, I'll just tell you the answer. No. Questions like that I feel like are so loaded, but it's a simple answer: Christianity and the gay Christian. I think there are people that are, and Mark mentioned this a few weeks ago, I think there is a tendency in the church to think there's gay and straight when it comes to sexuality. And to me, I think that all of us are products of a broken world sexually. We all have desires that we have to say, is this God ordained, and is this something I should follow? And so I think there are gay Christians. I think there are people that are faithful to Scripture, that are attracted to the same sex, that would label themselves as gay or have been labeled gay by other people, that are Christian, that are following Jesus, that love Jesus, that are pursuing Him, that are growing, learning, that are disciples. So I don't think they contradict one another. My thought. How about you all?
I agree. I do. I feel like I've even been encouraged and spurred on in my faith by friends that I have that are gay, that are Christian. So I feel like we're pretty much.
Yeah, I think the church just has a history of stigmatizing certain types of sin. I mean, when I was growing up, it was divorce. Divorce was like the sin that people, if they committed that, then it was kind of over. They'd get kicked out of churches. And I think sexuality is, our sexual sin can both be very public and both very private. And so, and I mean, the Christian world in general, we're a bunch of prudes. So, I mean, that stuff gets really, really hard to talk about, and it's a challenging topic in general. And as we understand how people work and how our brains work and the proclivities that we have, it's challenging. It's a challenging topic to have, but it's something that's definitely facing us. And I think that we can't dismiss that by just labeling things in a way that makes us feel comfortable.
Yeah. So I do think that's a question that I've heard asked a lot of times, and usually somebody has a thought behind it. So if you're somebody who is struggling, with homosexuality, and you're like, can I follow Jesus? I would say yes. Or that could be someone saying, can gay people be Christian? Are they out? I don't know what the experience behind that is. And so that's why I hate bolstering all of our identities. It could
be a family member.
Yeah, are rooted in Christ. And there's so much that goes into that. We all buy different identity lies and make our sexuality more than it should be, I think, in our lives and what it means to follow Christ. This is a question. Sorry. What lessons have you learned since the pandemic began? I feel like we've talked about this many a times, but what have you learned since the pandemic began?
Wow. I could go a few different places on this one, so I'm trying to think what I want to say that's actually probably of use. And I think for me, my online interactions with people will probably have forever changed. Just I think when you have friends on social media, and I use that term loosely, like when you actually have real life friends, you tend to expect them to know you and know your heart and know your intentions. And then when you go to something like a very public platform like Facebook or Twitter or something like that, and you post something, and then you start to realize that like people who may be close to you, even family, don't really know your heart that well. And I think for me, at least, that was maybe really eye-opening early on, just as a lot of these different debates raged this past year, whether it's politics or the pandemic or whatever that was, is just kind of going, oh, okay, now I realize that I'm not able to have these nuanced conversations as well as I had hoped. And so that, and just trying to, I think the best thing you can do sometimes is just try to understand other people's intentions, even when you don't, I guess just try to sympathize the best you can. But I don't know. I feel like that's a lesson I'm continuing to learn. And I think that definitely, it maybe was before the pandemic, but it was definitely kickstarted during it.
Oh, I feel like there's a lot of different ways I could go with this too. But one thing that just really sticks out for me is intentionality is so important, because when what this all started back in March, it was everything shut down. Like our kids were at home from school, but still expected to be doing school online. And I was working from home, trying to juggle that. Ben was considered an essential worker. And so it was just like everything stopped, but everything then began going in a different direction. And so I really had to step back and say, how am I intentionally going to make sure my kids are still engaged? They're so social and they love being around people. So how can I do that? And how am I going to be a good mom, but not, and balance being someone who's also working and, striving towards a career. And so I just felt like slowing down and being intentional looks different, and that's okay. And I think giving grace in the middle of that was something that I feel like I've talked about it before, but actually doing it and having months to practice doing that was something that I feel like I really had to walk away from all this with. So
I realized I'm more broken than I thought, and just meaning, man, I'm more judgmental than I thought of people, especially as people were locked in their houses and posting a lot more on social media. That the immediate gut reaction that I have is sharper than I'd like. Sometimes I'm more proud than I thought I was. I've been more convinced that humility is really our only hope in the church. But then I'm also more confident than ever that God is building his church and the gates of hell won't stop it. And so, it's been a good a good thing. I think a good part of the sanctification process anyways is to realize the depth of my brokenness, but the goodness of God and how he's redeeming it, and the goodness and his faithfulness to the church that we've created out of cultural norms, but that God is way bigger than all of that. So boom. I don't know why I said boom, but
you're just super proud of what you said.
So
it
wasn't like a mic drop. It was just like, boom, let's move on.
I'm just messing with you.
All right, next question. The talk. That means sex because it's in quotes.
Oh, okay.
So I'm assuming
Thank you for clarifying that.
Well, maybe it just means sexuality. We'll see what is the talk with kids. What age? Moms to girls, dads to boys. What you've done as far as communicating that.
Yeah.
I have not personally had the talk, like full on sex talk with my kids. I feel like I act now and communicate with them now in preparation for that, though, if that makes sense. Like, right or wrong, this is just what I have done at our house is. So we have almost 7-year-old, turns 7 next week, and I'll just randomly say, hey, where do you think babies come from? It's not even sexual, but just like, hey, where do you think this is? Or if they come to me with a question, not shaming them, in a way of kind of opening up that conversation. So I am trying to create this safe space for them to feel like that they can come and have this conversation with me. Now, we haven't gone down the who's going to have what talk with who, because I have 3 boys. So I don't know if we haven't discussed, like, is that going to fall on Ben as far as like sexuality and stuff like that. Ben and I do a lot of stuff together, like as far as communicating things with them, or if they have a question or they like, point something out on somebody else. But yeah, this is, it's scary, but it's not.
Yeah, when my kids learned that I played nude ball. No, just kidding.
Poor Alex.
I think we have
We love Alex.
episode 66. I'll just refer you back to that. We had the DeFores on there who came in and talked to Jess and I specifically about parenting and having that talk. They talked about husbands and wives as well. So I think that's just a great resource that is going to give you plentiful more. I would say the talk, air quotes, is not a good plan as far as the mentality of we're going to have the talk and then the talk is over. I think it's a series of talks that lead up to maybe one, serious sit down. But I think you have to, like you're saying, Jess, it's entertaining ideas, asking questions, opening that dialogue up so that the talk isn't like, we did it and then it's over. Because I think you have to have different levels of talks throughout a maturation process. I think having a number in mind for your kids is good, but each kid is unique, and each of their circumstances, their classmates, their experiences, their exposures, all going to be unique. But I think it is important to always know that it is, sexuality, sexual brokenness is hunting down our kids earlier than it ever has with the advent of the internet, with iPads, with just all of the things that they're able to find. And so, you need to be proactive, not reactive.
I also say there's just not an age I think that question's kind of like, when do you do it? And I think it's just based on their maturity level. I know my kids are far more mature at their ages than I was. And they ask better questions than I asked. And they also they tend to deal with things better than I think I would have at their age. So, but you kind of that doesn't mean all your kids are going to be the same. So, but I do think if you have a bigger family, the older one's just going to start disseminating the information as they get it too. So, but I don't think you can put an age on it.
Unless you're asking about Santa. But I don't think that's what they're asking.
They're not asking about Santa.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Next question as I draw it. What's your favorite Bible story?
Bible story.
What's your favorite?
Man.
I think I will say, as a kid, I always loved David and Goliath. And I only heard it for so many years. Growing up in the church, in Sunday school, I just heard the part. They always just told me the part about him killing the giant, and that's it. David killed Goliath. And when I got older and found out that not only did he kill him, but he chopped his head off, man, did I love that story even more. That story just seemed way cooler at that point. And I'm like, why did you leave that part out? Kids need to know that he chopped his head off. That makes the story so much cooler. Mm-hmm. So I would say, just on a hey, I'm watching some Hollywood version of the Bible. David and Goliath still seems pretty cool to me. And not even for the reason, it's totally, I realize I'm totally missing the point of that story, and I'm just here for the gore and the violence, but he chops his head off, and that's pretty cool.
Hey, it's in the Bible.
That's where I'm going. Mm-hmm. Just to...
I love any story where... So I think of when this question, so the two are in my head, is the woman at the well, and when Jesus meets Mary and Martha on the road when he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead. I love stories where Jesus knows details about that person, or he knows how he's going to use them. He has this plan, and he meets them, he sits with them, he loves them, he speaks truth over them. Because I think for me, so I guess just you could pick either of those stories, but I love it because it helps me trust the Lord more, because he saw the sin that was there, or he knew with Lazarus, he was going to raise him from the dead, and he knew what was to come, but he still sat with Mary and Martha. He sat with the woman at the well, and he was with them, and he didn't matter what they had done, and he knew what he was going to do with them, but he saw them, and he made them feel seen. And so to me, it just helps me trust the Lord more, knowing he has a plan, but he will sit with me. And so I guess, can I pick two? Sure. Those are my two. They kind of just
there you go
hit off of each other.
It's totally fine.
That's me.
Yeah, for me, probably one of my favorites is in Acts 20, when Paul was preaching a sermon, and it said he was going on, and a young man who was in his chair was sinking into a deep sleep as Paul talked. And when he was sound asleep, he fell to the ground out of a third-story window, and they picked him up dead. So it's a lesson that if I'm ever going on, whether to middle schoolers or whenever I'm preaching, if it's just a warning.
Who knows how many people have died listening to this podcast?
Close the window.
No, that's always one of those obscure stories I like to tell middle schoolers when I did student ministry, but because people are like, what? That's actually in the Bible? Yes, it is. But I don't know. I don't have a favorite story. There's different stories that, depending on what's happening in my life, that are just impacting me, are
going to resonate
at different times, and then also remembering it's all a single story, a single narrative, and so
it's the story.
Yeah, the story. So yeah, I don't really have. That's a bad answer, but I don't have a favorite.
His favorite are all of them.
All of the Bible.
Whole thing.
Jesus.
I love all of you the same.
Jesus, when he was born on Christmas.
Oh my, these are some good questions.
It's his birthday.
My question for the podcast is: how do we discern when to be loving with people and when to call out evil? How do we discern when to be loving with people and when to call out evil?
Sounds like it's come from one of our very legalistic listeners. So when do we do it? When do we call it out?
Okay, read the question one more time. When do we discern?
How do we discern?
How do we discern?
When to be loving with people and when to call out evil.
Can I answer that, and then you guys can tell me I'm wrong?
Yeah,
that's fine. Okay.
Or say, yay,
I think. I mean, I immediately go to the story, Jesus' parable of the plank in your eye kind of thing, and it's. I think that the church a lot of times we as a church have that plank in our eye where we don't follow Jesus' teachings very well. We do sometimes, and we do maybe a lot of times of certain teachings, but we don't follow all of his teachings really well. And so I think when it comes to a cultural thing, one thing that we get really, some people get very excited about is like, oh, this opportunity to point out someone doing something wrong. And I don't think it always comes from a really good place. I think sometimes it comes from a place of selfishness or arrogance, or even I've been living my life this way this whole time. I have given up things. I have sacrificed stuff. I have lived this Christian life, and here these people are who are not. And I want to tell them. I want to tell them why they're evil and tell them why they're wrong. And so I think that there's a lot of hypocrisy, and Jesus points that out really well in that example. Mm-hmm. And I struggle with that question only because a lot of times in my experience, it's coming from a place of like, I just want, and I'm not saying that the person that sent this question is saying this, but it's like, I just want to like set this person straight. Like they are obviously wrong and they need to know it. And someone needs to just tell them, and we got to say it like it is. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think that most of the time there are many problems that can be solved by just telling it like it is. Like that's kind of the pick yourself up by the bootstraps, John Wayne, yeehaw answer. And I just don't think that applies very often.
How do we discern? Well, I think that the beginning of that is prayer. And I think that discernment is something that you ask the Lord for. So prayer definitely needs to be involved in this. And then I would be asking this person when to be loving to people and when to call it evil. What are you considering evil? Because I think that
is it the person or
right,
the activity?
Or, I mean, is it murder, or is it evil to accidentally mow like another couple inches into your neighbor's front yard? I mean, I don't know with something like this, and so I think asking ourselves, what do we consider evil? I'm assuming this is meaning something more serious, but to me, the word discernment in there, praying for that. And to me, calling out evil, I don't know. To me, instantly, I'm also thinking of, what relationship do you have with that person?
Yeah.
I just have clarifying questions for this. And that's the difficulty of asking people to ask us questions, because then we can't really follow up and ask what someone really means. And I assume the best, because I think we should always be loving and we should always call it evil. And so I think they both have to coexist. I think we're called, that's our call, love God, love people, and serve both. And so I think there's never a time where we should discern, I'm not loving. Like I should always be loving, and I should always want to call out evil. But I think that where it gets tricky is because I think if evil's happening in someone's life, if it's happening in my life, the most unloving thing I could do is not call it out.
Right.
Same for my kids. The most loving thing I do for my kids is I correct their behavior, which is different than their identity, and separating those two things. But the most unloving thing I could do for my kid would be to just let them to see a bad behavior and let them continue to do it, and not let them see the consequences for it. And so I think the two, we're called to do both always. I think the question to me is, how do I discern, am I lovingly calling out evil? Mm-hmm. Am I doing this out of love? Have I done this to myself first? And I think that's one of the things I love about how the Lord teaches us to pray. Again, going back to the Sermon on the Mount, he always causes inward reflection first. And I think the more we realize the evil that can seep into our hearts, the more we realize how unloving we can be towards ourselves. Forgive us of our debts as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. And so I think it first has to start internally and then move on from there. But I think the answer to me is both. We always are called to do both.
Well, and I think when the word evil gets thrown around so much in our society, and it's pointed at politicians or just anybody who thinks differently than we do, and it's just like, oh, they're evil. You can just see it. They're evil. And it's like, okay, what does that actually mean? Are we actually talking about real evil? Or are we just wanting to use this word to discredit someone and, slander them. Anyways, go ahead, Jess. You pulled a question.
Next question.
Yep.
What worries you most about the future of the church? What gives you the most hope?
Who's going first? Who's going first?
I mean, what gives me the most hope is seeing God's faithfulness, knowing He's promised that, as I said earlier, as he was having that conversation with Peter after he died and rose again, he's like, Peter, on you, I'm going to build my church and the gates of hell are not going to stop it. And so I believe that promise. I've seen God's faithfulness over and over again. And so I believe that. Like I said, I've seen that over the last year, how we picture the church thriving has been upended, but I think the church is thriving in a different way than it ever has. And so I think that's one of the things that gives me so much confidence. What worries me is people are a part of it and they're flawed, and leaders fail. We sometimes get too attached to politics, I think, especially in the American church. And we start to elevate and we start to make Play-Doh Jesus that fits into we want Jesus to look like us and our beliefs, instead of thinking that He's the potter, we're the clay. When we get those two things backward, then I think the church does a lot of bad things. And so I think not just Christians, but the outside world has married too much, I think, political figures to the church, and I think that could be a travesty.
I would say the thing that gives me the most hope is Gen Z on TikTok. The thing that makes me the most fearful is Gen Z on TikTok. I think I fall into TikTok is such a great window into the upcoming generations and the way they think. And I see both sides talking about the church, and I see brilliant commentary from people a fraction of my age, and it gives me a great amount of hope for people, deconstructing their faith in a way that is valuable, in a way that separates some of the toxic things that the church has maybe taught us by accident in some ways, and looking at Jesus's teachings in a very holistic way instead of just cherry picking it. And I see those things sometimes come from Gen Z, even like residents that have come to the church, and hearing them talk about their passion for the gospel, and just in those things give me hope. But then I also know that there is a whole generation of people whose parents have been so hurt by the church that they have taught their children that the church is a bad, not safe thing. And they also have opinions, and they are also influencing people on what to believe about the church. And I think that's the thing that I'm most fearful of, because as long as the church doesn't continue to let people know what we're for, and that is them, and that we love them, and rather it be about, what we hate, and that we don't, love the LGBTQ community, or we don't love people who think differently, or we don't love people who maybe have more progressive thoughts than us. Like, as long as that is the message that gets spread, then I think the church is in a lot of trouble. So there you go.
I'm just answering this off the cuff, so unedited. But what worries me most about the future of the church
I edited you.
Yeah,
sorry.
is that there are people that still are under the assumption that abusers and predators will be protected and stay safe and be safe in the church. And what gives me the most hope is that there are people that are changing that narrative and are not standing for that. But just especially from the conversations that we've had this year, and when leaders fall, that was the first thing that came to my mind.
Great. That is good. Okay, I'm going to call it now. We're going to do the rapid round because we're running out of time, and there's still quite a few questions in here.
We're good.
So if it's not addressed to you specifically, we'll try to answer maybe just one answer per question. Okay. Unless it's like obviously really a question for the whole group and we all need to answer it. But if that's the case, then let's do it fast. This is a big one. Oh, no, this is just a big piece of paper. Okay, would Uncomfortable ever make suggestions for media to check out? Well, sure we would. Movies, TV shows, music, video games. I would recommend The Chosen because that's a show about Jesus. No, I'm just kidding. I haven't even watched that. I hear it's good. Let's see.
I think we would. It said would we. I think that we will.
Yes.
Video game. I'll tell you to check out Valheim if you play on PC. That's a great game. Also, I would say music. I'm listening to a new album by Manchester Orchestra called Million Masks of God. That's really good.
If you're a parent that doesn't want to be annoyed by a children's show, Bluey, Coco Melon.
Okay, there you go.
Last Chance U, Netflix, the basketball one, really good.
Oh, that is good. Cussing though.
Following Christ in College. That is what this piece of paper says.
Following
There's not
Christ
a question. I think you should follow Christ in College.
Good job.
And
Next
if you're wanting to do this really well, we do have an awesome college ministry. Go to cccomaha.org/808. They would love to, or if we didn't answer your question, send us a DM.
I wonder, I just want to add, like, if this is like a thing where it's like, oh, but my identity is all about Christianity, and that makes it hard to fit into the culture of college. Like, I would suggest fit in where you can, where you don't compromise your moral compass, and learn to love people where they're at and build those relationships without maybe shoving all the Christian stuff down their throat right away. And then maybe they'll start to see the way you behave and act, and you can build a bridge. So anyways.
808. Thursday nights at 808.
I feel like that could be a whole episode.
Yeah. These are all episodes coming up. This is we're planning our whole year.
And 808 has their own podcast as well. So
plug.
When will the demand for Pokemon cards calm down so that I can start collecting them again, Eric?
I don't know, but if you want to come hang out with me at the Council Bluffs Target at 8 a.m. on Friday morning, that would be this morning. So if you're listening to this early, stop by. My kids and I, we play hooky from school on Friday mornings to get Pokemon cards.
Oh,
I have no idea when they're going to slow down. I don't know. It's a scalper's market right now. Is Bigfoot real? What is your favorite urban legend?
Oh, I don't want to say Bigfoot's not real. I like the legend, and there's like the National Bigfoot Convention that's in Nebraska.
Bigfoot could be real.
Why not?
But it's so
my
it's
favorite
Nessie.
Urban legend. If we're going to share real quick, Loch Ness Monster.
That's mine
hands
too.
down.
Okay, next.
What's your
Ness
favorite
monster? I don't know. I don't really have a favorite.
What?
Praying for celebrities and politicians. That seems to be taboo amongst Christians nowadays. Yes, is the answer. I think there's a lot of people that are okay with praying for people that they agree with, and not great at praying for those who they disagree with.
Yes.
And so you should probably pray more for those that you disagree with, and pray for yourself that God would open your eyes to see them in a new light.
I don't think there's anything wrong with praying for a celebrity.
No.
Praying to a celebrity or praying to a politician.
Did I
that's
say that?
the problem. No, I'm not saying you said that.
He's
Whoa,
clarifying.
Clap back.
Did I
That was a
stutter?
little quick clap back there, Jess.
All right.
Oh, iOS or Android? What's iOS stand for?
You're Android. We're both iOS.
Yeah. So 2-1 iOS
got
wins. Can Alex please explain why he eats one meal a day? He mentions it, but never explained it, and I don't fully understand it.
Okay. Sorry,
Make
I
this
started
quick.
reading this other one. I eat one meal a day because it's just become a lifestyle for me the last couple of years. I've found a lot of health benefits, spiritual benefits, and
You're intermittent fasting.
yeah, intermittent fasting, and that's why
It's every day of the week?
every day of the week. Yeah, but I'm not over crazy about it. Like, I'll have a meal with somebody. If this person wants to take me to a meal
last week.
they could take me. You can take me to a meal, and we'll eat just for you.
But it has to be after 5.
For Alex, I am in college and wondering, how do you gauge how smelly is too smelly for your socks? Do you go by a scale of 1 to 10? The thing is,
That person's in college.
the entire reason that I smelled my socks wasn't to see if my socks are bad condition. It's to see if my shoes are in bad condition. And I would say once they get to about a ripeness of 6, then I need to not wear those shoes anymore, or they need to get washed.
Okay.
What hobbies have you picked up since the pandemic began?
Answer it.
I would say that thinking about this-
Podcasting.
yeah, I guess I wasn't doing that before the pandemic.
Yeah.
started doing that. I also do this thing that no one will ever see. So even if you try and search for it, good luck, because you won't find it. It's a very small number of people that get to do this, they get to see me do this. But I started this thing that I sent to some family and friends called Pour It Out, and I tried different drinks, like different sodas, teas.
Oh yeah,
sparkling water, etc., etc.
Yeah,
use your imagination. And I just send reviews. I like to do it.
Fun.
It's a little.
I haven't really picked up any new hobbies. Still just stuck on the old hobbies. I think there's one more question here. Alex, do you have a hobby you want to share real quick?
Hobby that I've picked up. I can't really think of a hobby I've picked up.
Wood whittling?
Nope.
Nothing like that?
Soap?
Nope.
Soap?
Whittling.
Started using soap? Oh, okay.
Nope.
Nothing. Eric, wait. Hobby?
Not anything new. No, yeah.
Gardening?
I just had more time to do some of my hobbies, I would say.
Yeah, I've done some home improvements around my house that I wouldn't consider a hobby because I don't enjoy doing it. So, but I've done it. All right, last question. Drum roll, please. That's a very nice drum roll. What does Jess balance being, or how does, wow, I can't read. How does Jess balance being a mom and having a career?
Very carefully.
All right, great episode. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, go ahead.
I do as well, being a father and having a career balance that, but.
Okay.
We can talk about that too, how that's
Jess.
Yeah, I think it's really hard. There are times, it was even last week when we were recording this podcast, I was engaged in the conversation. Somebody was texting me that was watching my kids, asking me where something was, and I at the same time was like thinking about like a grocery list that I have to make. And so it's just like, there's a lot. So I would say very carefully. It's been quite a journey for me. Like yesterday, my mom wasn't feeling good. And so I worked from home, and it's very hard balancing being a mom and having a career, being a counselor. I can't just, do a counseling session while my kids are sitting in the same room. And so it's definitely a journey. It's a struggle. If somebody, whoever asked this, like if anybody is just struggling in this area, it's something where I've just had to set really, really tight boundaries and work really hard at doing. And I still really struggle with this. So I am always willing to have conversations with people that are trying to do that. It is hard being a mom and balancing working.
Feels full circle though, right there.
Yeah.
Started with Happy Mother's Day. Yeah. We did not even plant that question for Mother's Day.
I just want to add, I know my wife is someone who works full time, and I think talking to other moms who don't, and talking to her from her experience, there is talk to moms who work if you don't work, and talk to moms who do work if you don't work. Find out what that is, because I think there is a breakdown where sometimes the career moms are like, oh, the stay-at-home moms are constantly judging me for this and thinking that I'm not raising my children right and I'm not there for my kids. And then there's this other side of where the stay-at-home moms are like, I bet they just think I'm lazy and I don't do anything all day and I just sit around here and whatever.
I think that's the worst thing.
And there's those two sides of that argument, and both are wrong. So talk through what that's like. There are benefits to both. There are things that you can afford for your children that you couldn't if both parents don't work. There are things that stay-at-home moms provide that, a career mom doesn't get to provide. So there are benefits to both. But if you're a mom and struggling with that, the best advice I can give as a dad, which I don't really have any room to say anything, is just talk to other moms with different experiences and learn what those are like. So anyways, is that it? Did we do it?
Amen.
All right. We emptied the boot. There's no more questions.
Quite a bit about Alex.
Yeah. Thanks for sending in your questions, especially the ones about Alex. And I hope you're glad that we got to all of them. That was a stretch for us, but we did it. We got through all of them.
I need a nap.
Alex needs a nap. Thanks everybody for listening wherever you might be. If you have any questions or concerns, you can send those to us on social media at CCC Omaha, or you can reach out to us via email. That's podcast@cccomaha.org. We'd love to hear from you there. But until next time, we'll talk to you then.